Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. I'm Tiffany Benson, one part of Team Benson, and it is another day of Vlogmas. I think we're on like day 8, so exciting. And I'm gonna talk about 5 plants that are must-haves for a small space garden. So first and foremost, guys, it was warm today. It was like 80 degrees today outside, so hence sundress, because it's 80 degrees in December. Who would have thought that would have happened? But okay, so let's get down to the topic. So when it comes to picking your vegetables for a small space garden, you want to have the ones that are going to be the most bang for your buck, and the ones that you're going to be able to fit a lot of different things around it, so that then you can fit as much as possible in your garden. Now, this has been something that I've talked to a lot of people about in the comments of the videos and also in my DMs about different things that are best for a small space garden, so that you can fit as much as possible, because even though we have a small space, we want to have variety too. And so we want to be able to fit things that are going to give us that variety. Luckily, there are a lot of dwarf things, and there's a lot of just things that don't require a lot of space. So we're going to go over that today. So one of the first things I want to show you guys is a cabbage. Now, cabbage we all know and love to get super, super huge. Like, cabbage will be ridiculously large. But there are smaller heirloom cabbages that are a lot smaller. They actually have like a cone shape on them. It is called a Jersey cabbage, which I will insert a picture right here. Now, this is my Jersey cabbage, and as you can see, it's already starting to form like a cone on it. So how it's growing is it's growing like this versus growing out like that. So it gives it a lot of space to be able to put things around it. So even though this kale is pretty close to it, because these aren't permanent, but it's pretty close to it, but it's not going to be overtaken by this cabbage, because this cabbage is going to grow more as a cone. Now, cabbage is one of those things that are nice to have in your garden, because cabbage you can also use as a cut and come again crop. Most people don't think about it, and they think that, okay, I have to wait till the cabbage grows out completely, but the entire cabbage is edible. So a lot of times what we do is, as the cabbage gets a little bit bigger and gets more leaves on it, then we cut the outer rim of those cabbages and we make different coleslaws, or we also make cabbage wraps instead of lettuce wraps. They're quite delicious, and you just fill them, put a sauce on them, put them in the oven and bake them, and they're amazing. So the next one is going to be a bush tomato. Now, tomatoes we know and love that they can get really, really huge and really, really tall, but getting a determinate tomato, and that is a bush variety, will give you lots of tomatoes. As you can see, we have ones here, one's all over here. Like, this tomato plant is actually full of tomatoes. They're all up here, but they stop. So as you can see, this top cluster is at the very top, which means this is as tall as it's going to get. So if you're looking for a space to where you can grow your tomatoes, but do it maybe in a pot, or also put it in a bed and just not have it take over, like my big one way over there, then getting a determinate bush tomato is going to be something that's going to provide you with a ton of tomatoes, but also not take up a lot of space. So that tomato plant there is full grown, so that's the size that it's going to get. So as you can see, it's already producing the same amount of tomatoes that my indeterminate tomato is producing, if not more, on this one. But the only caveat to that is that that's the amount of tomatoes that it's going to produce. My indeterminate tomato, if I take care of it right and properly, it will keep reproducing, whereas this one, once it produces, it's all it's got. But if you keep them staggered and constantly have your determinate tomatoes growing, then you'll be able to have tomatoes in your garden all the time, even if it's a small space. Now, the next one I want to talk to you about is eggplant. Now, eggplant is something that most people are used to seeing the eggplants at the store, and they're those big, huge, round eggplants that they're super huge and they take up a lot of space. But there's also an eggplant variety that I really love called an Icky Bob eggplant. Mine is pretty much grown out, but it hasn't grown the actual eggplants on it, so I'll insert a picture here. So this one is an Icky Bob eggplant, and that one back there is an Icky Bob eggplant. Now the nice part about it is that they pretty much don't get taller than this. This might reach the top of this, but it's going to take a while, at least a year, for it to do that. And it's already starting to produce eggplants. All of those little things like this are all eggplants, and it will produce a great number of them, and it doesn't take up a lot of space. Now, one thing I almost forgot, which was number 4, before I leave over here in this area, is my dwarf kale plants. Now, kale plants can get huge. Like, there's things called a dinosaur kale that can get like that big, or a walking stick kale that grows up the side of a building. And kale plants can really take over your garden with giant leaves. But you can get something which is a dwarf curly blue kale. And that one comes in a little bitty bush, and you can constantly grab new leaves off of it, and it's constantly putting new leaves onto it, and it's delicious. So I'll show you my bush kale plants here. So these are all dwarf kale plants, and as you can see, they're developing so many leaves on them, which they get a ton of leaves, and they don't really get that much bigger than this. It might get about that tall, but it's not going to be something that reaches the top of this frame. But it will keep reproducing and produce a ton of leaves. As you can see, if we look down here, it produces a ton of leaves at a time. And that's what you want. You want high producers that are going to produce you a lot of food and not take up a lot of space, so that you can fit as much as possible in your small space garden. Now, number 5, I was trying to decide which ones I should say, but I've decided that I'm going to do this by season. So what can grow right now in my desert garden? I couldn't do this video without saying my shishito pepper, because my shishito pepper plants grow ridiculously and they produce a ton of food. So if you ever want a producer or a heavy producing plant, shishito peppers is going to be where it's at. They produce amazing little peppers around this size. This one needs to be harvested, but they just keep producing them. I mean, if you look on this plant, guys, they are just all over the place. All of these little flowers are nothing but peppers, and it's on all of my pepper plants, all of my shishito pepper plants. There are just tons and tons and tons and tons. It's very hard to find a non-pollinated plant or flower on your shishito pepper plant. Now, there are tons of others that you could be growing too as well that are all dwarf plants, but those are the top 5 that I have right now that I think will be really good. If you had to just pick 5, those would be my top 5. So I hope that this was helpful for you guys. I hope that you guys are starting amazing gardens, and if you have a small space, you're trying to decide what you're going to do with it right now, if it's winter for you or if it's season for you, like us desert gardeners, you're starting to put stuff in the ground. Now I'm going to show you a little spot in our kitchen that is dedicated to Hanukkah. Alright guys, so this is our coffee bar, and it has our cute little Hanukkah cups on it. So I found these at Target, and I was super excited about it because now we have Hanukkah coffee mugs. Thank you guys for checking in on my videos and watching my Vlogmas. Vlogmas has been so much fun for me this year. This is my first year doing it, and being able to share my garden with you guys on a daily basis is actually quite fun, because then you guys can get excited about how it's growing when I get excited about how it's growing. So it's kind of like being able to talk to you guys in real time. But I hope that you guys are all growing yourselves gardens, because even a small space can provide you with tons of food. Bye guys.